tell me when we're live. We're live. Great. All right. This is the Granada Community Services District Board of Directors meeting for Thursday, September 19th, calling to order at 7 p.m. And can we have a roll call, please?
Director Clark?
Present.
Director Dye? Here. Director Marsh?
Here.
Director Grant?
Yes.
And Director Randall?
Switched to this next. Ready for you. All right.
Also in attendance, General Manager Chuck Duffy, Assistant General Manager Hope Atmore, and General Counsel Bill Parkin via Zoom.
All right. Thanks, Hope. First order of business is members of the public may comment on matters under the jurisdiction of the district that are not on tonight's agenda. Comments limited to 3 minutes. Do we have any members of the public who would like to make a comment on something not on the agenda? Second to see if any hands go up on Zoom. Seeing none, we will move on then to the regular meeting agenda. First item is the Parks and Recreation Activities report on Granada Community Park and Recreation Center.
Yeah, so as far as the mitigated negative deck, as was mentioned in the memo, the Montrose Environmental needs a little more time. There were a lot of comments, so they want to make sure they do a thorough job. We expect to get that from them within the next 4 to 5 days, which should give us time to review and get it out to the board and to the public.
Okay. And then we'll aim for then the October agenda for review.
Right.
Okay.
And then as far as parks and or planned recreation program activities, we have a drawing class that's due to start next week. We're hoping to get a few. Good. We also, just so that the board knows, we've incorporated an integrated payment system within our website now, so that when people sign up for classes, they can actually pay online, which is a nice, easier step than having to use Eventbrite. We have on October 12th, a number of events happening. We've got the Ecology Recycling Day, Fall Fest at Quarry Park, and then that evening we have a movie night. So it's going to be a big day in El Granada on the 12th of October, just a week prior to Pumpkin Festival, which is great. And then we'll have another El Granada History Walk in November. So those are the things sort of upcoming, but our newsletter's up on our website. There's a page for upcoming events. So I would recommend people take a look there. We've also got the Bookmobile coming next Monday. So that's another ongoing activity. And then I can move on to the next item.
Yes, item C.
So item C is a report on the RVs, the dumping, and the graffiti. I'm sure most of you saw that there was a lot of graffiti on the ramp. We did get that cleaned off. It took a little while because we wanted to make sure that we did it in a way that wasn't going to damage the ramp surface. So that was taken care of. We're having some ongoing issues, complaints to the county as well as to us about some of the dumping that's occurring, both waste, human waste, as well as junk. We've had to have Recology go and pick up a pile of junk now down by the ramp that got dumped down there. And then also have had Sam go out a couple of times now to clean up some human waste that has been showing up in bushes. So that's unfortunate, but I included a timeline of all the outreach that we've done, the different agencies at the county that we're working with. I also had a discussion with Eric DeBode at Abundant Grace yesterday about it. It's obviously a complicated problem with a lot of different issues involved and a lot of different agencies that need to be involved. And, I think there are a number of people who are working on it. I wish I had a quick and easy answer, but it's just not that simple. So that's where we are with that. And I have also what's not on here is I've had a couple of emails out to the Sheriff's Department, the captain of the Sheriff's Department who's on the Coastal Patrol, and I'm hoping to hear back from him soon as well because, we unfortunately don't have a sort of an enforcement mechanism. And for our staff, the 2 women who work here, it's not really a position that we want to be in where we're trying to enforce something like that. So
Definitely not.
Yeah.
Is there was one RV that was way beyond the 3-day limit without moving.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's one also that has expired tags. Did you say that is the sheriff sort of focused on that?
So there
Particular
are,
issue?
there are a couple that are completely on Obispo Road. There is one that is sort of straddling San Mateo County right of way and GCSD property. And that's, I think that's the one that's the trickiest because sort of nobody wants to be responsible for it. The ones that are on Obispo, they get tagged and, if they move after 3 days, they move and then the problem just gets pushed down the road. The one that's straddling is the one that we're a little more concerned about because
It's not moving every 3 days.
it's not.
I saw something that said the sheriff's office was working with agencies to try to find a solution for that one, that
Mhm.
person, I think, is unwilling to move and they're trying to find a solution to that.
That's what I've been told too by various county
Yeah,
representatives. Yeah. I have not gotten any confirmation from the sheriff's office about that, however.
that's the one who's in the protected view. So,
And we think that's the one that's putting the waste on
oh, really?
the strip, the property, yeah. And Hope's done a great job of following
Yes.
up on this stuff and trying to track it down. And she and we are a little frustrated because we're kind of the last people. Again, Hope's not going to go or Nora's not knock on a door. We'd hope to leave.
Yeah, that's not her job.
It'd be the sheriff or something like
Yeah.
that. Right? So, but she's doing a great job of tracking it down.
Hope when you call them, do you get the sheriff, do you get timely response? Like if we saw somebody emptying their holding tank on GCSD property, we call the sheriff, would they come right down and, that can't be
I mean,
legal.
I think
I know.
if somebody saw it happening, that might be
Yeah.
different than what we're having happen right now, which is generally these things are happening at night. So what we did, the first thing we did was put out some signage with a QR code for people to report dumping to the county. Unfortunately, those reports then went to the county and the county came to us and said, you need to do something about this. Which I was afraid of when I put the signs up. I thought, this is going to come back to us and we're going to have to deal with it. And of course, we want to take care of anything that's dumped. We don't want to see that end up in waterways and draining up to the ocean. That would be terrible. So we're trying to stay on top of the cleaning, but it's a pretty tricky situation. I mean, the SAM collections crew is more than happy to deal with a sewage spill, but it's a little frustrating for them to be called out to deal with something like that. And I think, until we get this figured out, I'm likely going to have to reach out to a different organization, some sort of hazmat company to continue doing the cleanup, because I just don't think it's an appropriate responsibility for SAM. Even though they have the mechanisms to deal with it because of sewer spills, but it doesn't seem like it's the right avenue to take.
I think we should say thank you to them for
I
helping.
was going to say, I
They've
think to
been-
thank Tony.
They've been really great.
Yeah, Tony
Went
is-
out, met with
Yeah.
Hope, did it twice. And,
Mhm.
it annoys everybody because Matthew says it's illegal and it's disgusting.
Yeah.
Well, and God knows what they're doing in the willows there. That's a really nice little stream. It's got
And
a
it
bunch of
goes out to
native
Surfers
plants in
Beach.
it, goes out to Surfers Beach.
And there's water in it even now,
Yeah,
this
there
time of
is.
year, it's still flowing, so.
Well, I know the sheriff's office has expressed a commitment to finding a solution. I don't think it's easy,
Yeah, exactly.
but thank you for all you're doing.
I am excited to say too, that we did reach out to the person who did the original murals on the skate ramp. And I think he's interested in redoing the one that had been covered in graffiti because we pressure washed that as well. He seems to be interested in coming back out and doing that again.
That's Pete
Great.
Collin.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
Great. Do we have, just before we move on to the next one, because that was kind of a bigger, do we have any further comments from the board, comments from the public? Oh, go ahead, Trina. I need you to come to the mic.
I think it's a little too late, but when this project was planned, I suggested having a dump station as part of it. That I think would help. It might create other problems. The other thing, some well-meaning people have entered this lifestyle hoping that they could eventually be a part of our community. To get rid of these decrepit RVs is not an easy thing. And a lot of these people are financially strapped. So having the sheriff just hit them with tickets over and over is like knocking them over. A lot of them would like to surrender their RVs, and some cities have made an option for this. You could go in and say, I'd like to get rid of this. Now, There's not many mechanics in this country that will work on those, and there's not many places that will take a donated RV. There's a lot of hazardous waste in it. It's not like getting rid of your car.
Mm.
So I think we need to consider that a lot of it's a nationwide problem. We're hit harder here because of the beautiful climate. People could actually survive. But when they want to get out, it's not easy. And financially, it's, maybe not even possible. So we need to look at that and maybe offer them a solution. They want to agree to get rid of their RV. Do we know how they can do it? Can we give some counseling? Can we give them some help? So other than that, it's no good to just complain about pollution and decrepit RVs unless we see a solution on the horizon. This is a problem that's not going to go away. It's just getting worse.
Yeah. There is, when we have had people camping in the Willows previously, we do reach out to Life Moves, which is the main nonprofit that works with the county on moving people from unhoused, at least into transitional housing or shelter housing. So that is.
Well, that's good, but what are they going to do with these decrepit RVs?
That I don't know.
Besides getting tickets. So for some people, I believe that they just as soon get the tickets because it's cheaper than paying a monthly rent.
Yeah.
So they'll keep dumping the sewage.
I did ask, I had a offline comment in next door with Tim Costello at SAM to ask whether at SAM they could set up a publicly accessible dump station. He said it's not easy because somebody has to be there with them. It's not something you can leave unattended. But he did say that someone who needs help with that regard should contact him. Because I think, again, Sam and Tony and the SAM crew have been great trying to help. So that's one avenue as an alternative for dumping. Other people posted, you can actually go to the Francis, if the RV is operational, to the Francis Beach State Park and pay $10 to get in and $10 to dump your tanks. So there are a couple options at least to avoid, having the waste dumped in the field.
So it's hard to put ourselves in their place, but I think they are struggling to be community members. Maybe we need to consider and help them along to solve the problem.
Thank you, Trina. Any other comments before we move to the next item?
I have a comment.
Go ahead.
If the public is done.
Yes.
Okay. For item A, you mentioned October. Does that mean that Montrose will be coming back to the GCSD staff in October? Or does that mean they'll be coming back to the board in October?
They'll be coming back to the board in October at our board meeting. So they'll finish their review of the comments and their comments on the comments next Wednesday. And then we're figuring it's going to take us a week and Bill Parkin to review the comments and put the package together and all that kind of stuff. And then at the October 17th meeting, they will be there to discuss the MND.
And what will happen at that meeting? Will that
Your board will have, your board will have to consider the MND and approve or deny it.
Okay. And so I just want to say that statements were made during this process that the plan wouldn't be altered in any way. The project description wouldn't be altered in any way. And I just want to say this was a legal comment period. And this is when changes would be made. If we are just dead set against even considering any alternatives, it's really not in the spirit of CEQA. So I hope that the GCSD staff and legal counsel are aligned with that.
Well, that's part of the MND process. And if you want a better look at that, we could ask Bill, but part of the MND process is you're looking at the comments that come in on it and some level of what you can change and what you can't. And Bill, would you like to weigh in on that?
Well, this is an MND, so the MND doesn't have to set forth a range of alternatives. And obviously, the board will consider the environmental document and make a decision on based on the MND and the information provided therein. And then it's up to the board's discretion as to any particular changes. Of course, if there are items that are deleted, that wouldn't cause additional impacts. If there are things that are added, then we'd have to look at whether it's within the scope of the MND. But the board will have the discretion to decide on this project and the approval of the MND.
So the October 17th meeting will be when the board considers the changes made in the MND and can offer changes and vote on it, and the public can also attend and look at that. Is that correct?
Yeah, it will be on the agenda and subject to public comment. Absolutely. But the MND is the MND as it sits now. So the board will consider the MND and the comments received and the responses to those comments.
Okay. On section C, the RVs and dumping and graffiti. How did we clean off the graffiti? Was it just power washing?
Yeah, we hired a local power washing company out of Half Moon Bay, Miller's Power Washing, and they used, it's a goof off brand of graffiti removal. They sprayed everything down with that first, and then they did a power washing and sweep up of that water as they went. So I had reached out originally to a couple of different graffiti removal companies in San Francisco, but they were pretty slow to respond, and Miller's Power Washing was able to come a little more quickly. So that's why we went with them.
And what was the cost of that?
I think only $400. They were quite reasonable.
That's pretty good. Okay. And then on the RVs, so that RV is the one that's in the protected view corridor. Is that in the San Mateo County right of way?
It's partially within the San Mateo County right away and partially on our property.
And then Bill, can you answer what do we have legally to enforce the removal of an RV park there?
Well, the GCSD doesn't have general police powers. Obviously, I think the first order of business is to try to get the sheriff to move the RV off the site and deal with that. Obviously taking other legal actions is a more drastic measure, but I think the first order of business, and we've worked with the sheriff's office before. It's been a couple of years, I think, but and it's complicated by the fact that it's partially in the right of way. But it's not an easy issue to resolve, but nonetheless, I think Hope is doing a good job of trying to reach out and get some resolution of that. And it would be really helpful if the county came in and assisted us in dealing with that situation.
I think it's also not easy because, as I understand it, that RV is not operating right now. It's broken down, and there's actually a family living in it. There's a husband and wife and at least one small child. So I think the sheriffs are kind of feeling a bit of compassion, which I understand. I'm just wondering how this will affect our future park when we have parking lots and such and angled parking. Will this be a common occurrence, or do we have a plan in place?
Well, yeah, we haven't talked about that yet, but obviously there's been people parking there overnight for some time, as you point out. The big problem with the RV is that there's people living there, which is an abandoned car. We could have towed it and, kind of no harm, no foul. But we're going to have to put procedures in place, whatever that may be, for overnight parking, whether it's gating the parking lot or things like that. Even to that extent, we put those big logs out there and, we couldn't tell at the time we put the big logs out there whether they were exactly on the property line or not. So I think if we do, or when we resolve this RV issue, we'll move them out closer to the roadway so that doesn't become an attractive place to park.
And will that require San Mateo County's write-off to move it into their right-of-way? The
No,
logs?
'cause we'll put it right on our property line. I think there's only about 6 or 7 feet of parking from the actual pavement to our property line. We haven't done an official survey, but from looking at the maps, it's kind of the best we can tell.
So I would recommend that when you talk to Montrose, you might want to incorporate that into the M&D, how this is going to be addressed in the future, and security and policing and all that. Because I didn't see much in there. Thank you.
I think in the park plan, just to add on a little bit, I think in the park plan, there is additional curbs and extending the curbs so that when they park, they would actually be parking on the county right away, and the curb would protect our property from them
Yeah, and that's
overlapping
what's-
onto our property.
right. And that's what's tricky about that little spot is there is no curb there.
Yeah.
And I think that's why the logs were put there, because people used to use that as another way to park on the main part of the, property. They would just pull right in and park. And so that was sort of the solution because there's no curb.
We have to remember the SAM tanks over there as well. We didn't want definitely people parking.
Driving over there.
They're traffic rated, but wide. But, people move the logs. We put them on that side and the 4x4 came in the next night and they were 10 feet in. So.
Okay, any further comment on item C? So now we'll go up to D.
Okay, so just a quick recap. We did have our quarterly meeting with RCD, Chuck and myself, along with Joe Issel, and kind of talked about the relationship moving forward and doing a little revamp on the MOU and revisiting projects as they come up. So Joe will be working on creating that revised MOU and getting it over to us, and we have quarterly meetings planned. He's also looking into the snail abatement for our previous discussions. And so we're going to continue to work with him. And again, I asked them during that meeting if they felt like we were going to need to mow again this year, and they felt like we did not. So I think the mowing is not something we need to worry about for the rest of this year, but the snails are definitely something we want to try and address.
So do we have any management planned for the rest of the year, 2024?
That's part of what he's going to work on is looking back at that vegetation management plan and seeing what actions can be taken with the idea that we are going to be developing the park and making sure that we're using the dollars in a wise manner.
Yeah, he's going to put together a draft scope of work for the coming year and insert it into the MOU for your board's consideration.
Director Grant, you're muted.
Sorry. I had one last thing that, so I went down and talked to the skaters with my daughter Iris. She has a lot of friends who are on that skate ramp. I'm just curious if the skaters were ever surveyed on what they wanted for this new skate area.
Actually at the workshop that we had in October 2019 was very well attended by folks who want active recreation, including a number who sketched out the skate area and had ideas about it. So there was a very interactive group of about 16 people working on one of the maps. I think actually there is no design for the skate area as yet. It's just marked out as placeholder for a skate thing. And one of the ideas with the Parks Advisory Committee has gone dormant since they ran out of work to do. But one of the ideas, and this goes back a couple of years, is that when we get to where we're doing detailed work on the playground equipment, on the skate area, on the exercise equipment and so on, we would reconstitute that advisory committee, which could have they're all volunteers, and we could put anybody on it who we think we should put on it.
Okay, their feeling is don't get rid of their half pipe. It's the
That's
biggest
definitely
thing
on
to
the
them.
map.
So if you move it, that's fine, but they don't want to get rid of it. They love it.
Yeah, when we put that in place about 5 years ago, we had about, I don't know, 15 or 20 of the skate people at our meeting. Actually, I remember.
I think it was 50 or 60.
Yeah, well, it might have been more, right? But it was during Jonathan Whitwer's retirement. I remember that. So we've worked with them at that time, and since then, we're in conversation with Steve Hawk, who's loosely related to that. So obviously they're the ones using it, so they're the people we want to hear from.
Yeah, and it's on the plan. The skate ramp is on the plan, just moved to a different place.
Yeah, there's
Okay.
never been any proposal to it.
There's never been a proposal
Never.
to get rid of the skate ramp ever.
I just want to make sure. Another thing is it shows a skate area, but I would assume it's all concrete with the half pipe. And I just want to call attention to the GCSD staff that we have a skate park downtown Half Moon Bay, and it's very rarely attended. So you might want to look at that one and go, well, this didn't work. Let's do something different, because it's not their favorite.
Yeah, it's definitely there because the active group in our mapping workshop put some kind of better than a ramp, in addition to the ramp, different kind of skate feature. And so it's just an undefined skate feature.
Or something else.
They did say that a ribbon track is not exciting enough.
Yeah.
So that was the one bit of input that we got.
But something else could go too.
Okay, thanks.
Any other comments on Parks and Rec item? Not seeing any hands. We'll move on to item 2, which is consideration of a variance for APN 047-056-020, 1070 San Carlos Avenue, a 4,696 square foot parcel in a 5,000 square foot zoning district, owner Wendy and Adam Jensen. Guys want to give us a brief?
You want me to do it?
Sure.
Okay, sure. Yeah, so I've been here, 14 months? This is the first variance I've had, and it was funny to have 2 of them come in at the same time. But so this one is in the R1S17. So that is, it's a 5,000 square foot zoning district. And this one is under that. It's also under the 4,750 square foot zoning, and so or number. And so it falls into the semi-annual approval, which means
Special approval.
right. So we can only see 2 of those per year total. Obviously, there has not been one in the last 14 months. I think the last one that came through was 2021 from what I could find. So, and so we shared this information with district council. Bill reviewed everything, went through the findings, which were in your packet. And if you have questions beyond that, I mean, it's a totally doable lot, just a little smaller than some of the rest.
Just 250 square feet smaller than
Right.
staff could approve. Right? Do we have any comments or questions? I'm sorry, from the board on this?
I have a question for Bill. Why are we limited to 2 variances within a year? What's the intent behind that?
Well, this is very substandard. So we have 2 thresholds. So first of all, if you're below the minimum parcel size, you need a variance. But then if you're even lower than that, our code calls for in this zone district and one other zone district to only have the issuance of one of these every 6 months. So it's just the way the code is structured and the way the board had previously ordained how these things were going to be. And I think the logic behind it is that it's metering the number of these really substandard parcels in terms of sewer capacity. So Chuck, I don't know if you want to add to that because
Yeah, that was basically the driving force behind the variance for all of you who weren't around when that was developed. The driving force behind the variance was these smaller lots the treatment plant was built out based on the LCP build out calculations. And those considered all standard size lots would have a house on them. So if you start providing sewer service to substandard lots, you might not have enough capacity at the treatment plant. And they did a report, the guy's name was Mintier, they did a Mintier report back 22 years ago. And that he labeled the number of lots and the build out capacity and all that. So that's the basic premise behind the variance program.
So just to get to Director Grant's question, so like the number is basically to manage the flow so that we don't get too many.
Right. And that's how you
Even though
do it.
we've only had two
I know,
last.
right.
It doesn't,
Like a huge wild.
There's a lot of issues still involved. Flows have gone down.
Yes, yes.
Right.
I think you
Wet
can-
weather storage, so we have a lot of
Mitigate
storage.
overflow potential.
a lot
This is
of
a preventative measure.
Yeah.
well, you can see in the review that Bill does, because this came up in some lots that are close to me. It does ask people to try to make their lot standard, particularly if they are next to an empty lot, to acquire enough of the empty lot that's next to them to make it a standard lot. So once they go through that and they can't make it standard, then it comes to us.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Barbara.
On number one, what percentage, where did mine go? What percentage of the lot is covered by non-structural hardscape?
So are you referring to item 5, Barbara?
Yeah, finding 5.
Yes, item 5, page 8. Item 5.
Yeah,
I
so
sent this question earlier today.
yes, and so I delved into it a little further. Most of all the walkways and the exterior surfaces that are impervious are greater than 18 inches and are factored in to the 35% number, the 1643.6 number. So what was left, the only impervious area that is less than 18 inches above ground is the driveway. There's no, I looked through the plans and I apologize for this, but I looked through the plans before the meeting and there's no specific number about the driveway, but I could glean that really the driveway is approximately about 25 feet deep is from what I could gather from the plans. The width is a little bit of a mystery. It's between 18 and 19 feet wide, which would come in just around 10%, which is 469.6 square feet. I don't know if the applicant is here and can.
I'm sure it would be fine, but it seems like we should pay attention. That's what we're supposed to do the finding, and we should pay attention to that.
Well, that gets to a tricky spot because these are actually the county regulations on lot coverage and impervious surface. And we've actually had a variance, I can't remember, 10 years ago, which came to us. We approved it. The county didn't approve their piece of it because they had too much impervious surface and kicked it back. They fixed it, had to come back to us, and then we approved it. So they're the ones who regulate this. What we're looking at is what are they doing that would possibly cause increased I&I into our system.
I hear that, but we're making a finding, and the finding should be accurate.
Right. And the finding,
all I'm saying.
if you look at the title of the finding, it says there's no features of the property or the development proposed thereon, which have the potential to have greater than usual contribution to wet weather sewage overflow.
That's our finding, yeah.
And
Okay. I'm just reading the wording of the finding, the legal finding that we're making, and I'm just wanting one more sentence that says the non-structure impermeable surfaces are within the 10% limit, which seems
well,
like,
we can do that. That's
Yeah.
at your board's discretion.
well, okay.
Do we know how the
I
driveway?
had to look back at this, Barbara, because I haven't seen one of these in a while, and Jonathan and I has had a good time with these. And I had to look back and go, why are we talking about impermeable surface? Where's that in the 11 findings? And it's in finding number 5. It So that's kind of
And I
something
just read it and I thought, well, wait, it
we
says,
adopted back when, but I joked with Jonathan and I said, don't put me on the stand. Because if you said to me, permeable and impermeable surfaces will affect our I and sewer mains, I couldn't say it.
speaking to that, I'm just saying that if we're making a legal finding, it should be clear. That's
We
all
are,
I'm saying.
yeah.
But I don't understand what, I mean, if it's not within our purview, why are we needing to make a statement on it? I don't understand. I'm sorry.
Well, I don't have opinion on whether we should making the statement. I'm just saying if we're making a legal statement, it should be clear. That's what I'm saying, which is,
But what I guess what I'm not tracking is like, there are many legal statements I could make, but it's not within my right to make them, so I can say something that no one cares. Like, do we have to make a statement on this?
Yes.
Like,
No,
that's what
Well, we
I.
could not,
right.
The finding that we're
I have to
making
make a
is
statement
whether.
on the required finding.
Flow, that's the
That
finding.
question.
We don't have to make a comment on pervious or.
22 years ago, someone started, before my time, someone started doing permeable, impermeable surfaces. And when I looked at this the first time, I said exactly what I just said now.
Right.
I can't tie it to what's going into our sewer, and that's what the finding requires. So I can make an argument if you want me to. I won't even
so
talk.
we can say anything we want in the finding because it doesn't matter.
No,
No,
if,
The finding is related to what it says here, that no features of the property or the development proposed therein, which have the potential to have greater than usual contribution to wet weather sewage overflow. That's our domain. That's the only thing that we
guy
can make.
graded
Whether
his
the
lot
driveway
to
is
flood.
150 square feet or 500, it's not going to make a difference to wet weather storage.
Right.
Okay, so the finding that says it's okay
it's not
because
causing more of an impact
Regardless
than
of-
any other. I know
not what the finding's about.
it is.
The findings about what,
The finding is pursuant to County of San Mateo zoning regulation, the maximum park.
look at the required finding.
It's not the
But isn't
finding.
this a required finding?
There's different
Required
sections.
finding.
There's required finding, there's
I
information.
can't.
Finding.
I can't. I
Well,
just
here,
like,
What's
I'll
in
show
our
you.
ordinance code?
okay, I don't care. Never mind.
Required finding.
The required finding is
Let me-
stated.
But that finding is related to.
But it doesn't matter what we say below.
Well,
Okay, never mind.
Let me,
But let me just say this, if the guy graded his lot on top of one of our sewer manholes, I'd say, yeah, this guy is contributing I, he can't do it. If he had all the runoff, I'd say, yeah. If you said to me he had 40% impervious or 35, it's no impact on our sewer system.
so can I,
think
Fine,
we're
it doesn't
good.
matter what we say, then never mind.
It's not, but you're being flippant and that's not what he's saying. It does matter what he's saying. What's here is what matters. So what you're wanting to add is what doesn't matter. So you can't just be flippant and be like, it doesn't matter. We are
Not
taking
being
it.
flippant. I'm
Well, it's
being-
coming across that way.
The finding is not in our ordinance code. The required finding is what we're looking at. So if I had been here 22 years ago, I wouldn't have done the pervious, impervious surfaces. I'd have said, does it hurt our sewer system?
And we're basically saying,
It's a technical question that I can answer because,
we're just noting that it complies with county regulations.
right.
Yeah.
Right.
General counsel would like to chime in.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Bill.
Sorry, Bill.
so the reason why, and this is traditionally how we've made this finding, is to talk about lot coverage in terms of impervious surface area. And the county many times complies with its own rules about impervious surface area, and it's not an issue. You may remember a few years ago, there was one project that actually did not comply with county regulations, and we had a discussion about that. But the reason why we go to the county regulations is to help make the required finding about features of the property or development would not have a greater than usual contribution to wet weather sewage overflow. And so my only point was, and I apologize for not adding this sentence in as Barbara had asked for, but from what I can glean from the plan, most of the areas that are impervious are part of that 35% with the exception of the driveway. The driveway is right around 10%. If it's probably just below it, it might be a couple square feet above it, but it's right there. And I just based on what Chuck said, I have a hard time believing that if an extra square foot of, impervious blocks, which is it's a driveway with blocks, it would contribute to wet weather sewage overflow. I think that would be a difficult thing for the board to find. So I hope that helps, but that's why we refer to the county calculations. And this is traditionally, this is sort of the template we use to make these findings. And this is the template we've used for years.
There was a certificate of compliance from the county.
I'm fine with it. I'm sorry, raised any question.
It's
That's not the
good to get your understanding. Go ahead, Director Grant.
Thanks. I'm not sure if this matters, so check. Does it matter that their fiber rolls are being installed incorrectly? So they're not installed along the contour lines. They're just going to direct any stormwater runoff right off the property with all the sediment and everything in it. Does that contribute to wet weather storage overflow or no?
Again, it would be on a plot by plot basis. You know, I was talking, it depends where your I&I is coming from. I could make an argument that if the whole lot is pervious,
Anyway,
SWIP plans and all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
We have any comments from the public? Seeing none, we have a motion on this. To approve? Sorry.
I'll move that we make the required findings for issue a permit for this house.
I'll second.
Director Grant seconds. Any further comments? So we roll call?
Okay. Director Clark,
Aye.
Director Dow, Director Marsh,
Aye.
Director Randall, Director Grant.
Yes.
Okay, variance passes 5-0.
Okay, we will move on to consideration of variance for APN 048-022-370 Magellan Ave, 8,800 square feet parcel in a 10,000 square foot zoning district for Tafra Family Trust. And this is one that is not in the twice a year category, but it's a variance on the kind of smaller than 10,000 square foot, but not smaller than 8,800 square foot lot. Right.
Yeah, so the other one was a 5,000 square foot parcel size. This one was in the S94, which is a 10,000 square foot. This one comes in at 8,800. If it were less than that, then we would be looking at it on the semi-annual, but very similar to the previous one. It's just a substandard lot. And findings are similar to the previous one, except that big difference being that we can see one of these every month if we needed to.
Okay. I just had one item for Bill. Bill, just so that you know that when you do these things, which I know can be a slog, people do look at them. There is a typo. On the finding for required item number 1, it says lot 28. It's in the second paragraph of the finding. You mentioned lot 28 twice, and I think the second one is meant to be lot 29. So just when we do the paperwork to sign it.
I'm sorry, Nancy, I don't understand
Where are you?
On
Finding one,
finding 1,
Second
under the
paragraph.
finding, second paragraph, it starts with lots 28 and 29, block
Correct.
4. And then go down to the fourth line, lot 28 was first conveyed separately from any adjacent parcels
correct.
on May 20th. And then you said, and lot 28 was first conveyed separately from any adjacent parcels. So you list lot 28 twice, and I think the second one is probably meant to be lot 29.
2 different time periods.
I'll check back on the records. You may be correct.
You have,
I think
otherwise it was conveyed
parcels.
twice.
Yeah, and then after that, it says these parcels were
Yeah.
merged.
Yeah, I just want to make sure because sometimes well, never mind. But
Okay, so just.
yeah, you're I'm 99% sure you're right. but just want to verify that there wasn't a subsequent reconveyance of some sort.
Okay, that's my only comment. Other comments? Seeing none, do we have any comments from the public? Seeing none, do we have a motion to approve this variance?
I move to approve the variance for EPN 048-22370.
We have a second.
I'll second.
Clark seconds. Do we have any further comment from the board? Seeing none, can we have a roll call?
Director Clark,
Aye.
Director Dye,
Aye.
Director Marsh,
Aye.
Director Randall,
Aye.
Director Grant.
Yes.
Okay, variance passes 5-0.
Okay, thank you. And we'll move on to item number 4, the engineer's report.
Okay, anyone have any questions on John Rayner's report?
Just so we still have the live issue of the, in the harbor, the, wet well meter to
Yeah, so
be
Hope
replaced or.
actually set up a meeting with them tomorrow that
Okay.
we're going to go to and try and resolve that issue.
And with-
And John Rayner had sent us a bunch of technical stuff of here's the kind of meter you put in that more toxic environment and all that kind of stuff.
And one of the engineers from Kennedy Jenks is also coming for that meeting tomorrow, so she'll be able to look at it in person.
Okay, that was my only question. Any other questions or comments on the engineer's report?
I wonder if this is the right time to bring up the Princeton pump station replacement.
You could do that under Sam.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a Sam thing.
I will say the public restrooms are very nice.
They are very nice.
Great.
Okay, any public comments on the engineer's report? Seeing none, we will move on to a report from Sam.
Two reps, you have any comments?
Well,
I can come particularly active. And our next big thing was the 5-year CIP. And we're not considering it here. Sam's meeting last week, or this week, earlier this week, was canceled. Next meeting day is a state holiday, so there won't be a meeting, the first October meeting. So we don't need to get back to this until near the second October meeting.
And since that time, Kishan circulated a 4th version of the CIP. He had added some of that detail. I think you all saw some of the background to the projects. We got some comments from a couple of the member agency managers. So I think he's going to try and set up a meeting like we had 2 months ago to discuss what's in front of us. And then I think it will go back to the
There's a 4th
SAM
version.
board. What?
There's a 4th version?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the intention was that it would come to this meeting for discussion and then go back to Sam for review, but nothing,
A couple
yes.
other managers had comments on that.
And nothing was sent to GCSD for this meeting.
we actually had,
No,
So
Kishan sent me and Hope that version, but did not say this is a version to
that we
discuss.
should have discussed. So
I asked Sam to send me the version of the latest one, and the person I talked to didn't know which one that was.
yeah, I think the version when we talked about the agenda, the version that Chuck had in hand had not been reviewed by the SAM board itself. And so it could just keep cycling back to us if the SAM board hasn't seen it and said, we think this is our CIP.
Yeah, we saw one version, the SAM board saw another, then we saw the third based on y'all comments at a SAM meeting. And then this one was slightly different as well.
and we have to remember that we're going to provide comments. It's a SAM document.
It is the same.
Correct, that's a good point to make. It is a SAM document, we're just saying, here's our input.
Yeah, it's not something we need to vote on.
Right.
And we don't need to, we need to be aware of whatever the final result is, but that doesn't mean we're committed to it.
Right, we're only committed to the budget we
And that's
approved
important.
1 year. Those are
Okay, so
important.
it's a projection, but it's not a
Yeah.
5-year budget.
Okay, so the important things that happened at SAM are the new agreement with the union was completed, And it's now goes through 2030, so this won't have to be approached for, and all the legal costs for another at least 4 years. And the unemployed representative, unrepresented employee manual was also approved after slight adjustments to the language. And that's 1 or 2 people.
Unrepresented.
Unrepresented, yes. And that was about it.
That'd be Kishan and Tim.
Okay,
George?
is that all
There you go.
from the SAM reps?
Mhm.
Director Grant, you had a question about Princeton Pump Station, which is a SAM asset.
I'm just wondering when it will be done, construction.
It is, they completed it in mid-August.
But they're waiting to install the surge tank.
Yeah.
That's why there's still the construction fences, and I keep pushing to figure out that they're waiting for equipment to arrive to finalize that.
Yeah.
I keep
So-
pushing them, cleaning
so
it
that-
up a lot.
The staging area that takes up half the parking lot, how long will that be in place? When will that be removed? Do we
They've
know?
committed to they have expressed the opinion that it will be done by the end of this month. They have told me that because I've been pushing. I agree with you. I have been pushing to get that cleaned up.
Okay, thanks.
All right, any other comments on SAM? Seeing none, we will move on then to the consent agenda, which includes August 15th regular meeting minutes, September 2024 warrants, and July 2024 financial statements. Would anybody like to pull any of those items from the consent agenda?
And before you do, vote on it, for the first time, as you'll all remember, I presented a fantastically complicated spreadsheet which did the split between parks reserves and sewer reserves. As a result of that, we are now tracking parks and sewer separately.
I saw that, and my compliments.
I really like that a lot.
So that's on page 72.
Yeah.
And, there might be a few little tweaks, but, Hope took over and started account coding them to each one when we send the bills to CLA, our account.
Yeah, I think it shows, this is the first one, really the first month that it shows the split of all the administrative costs
Right.
between the park and the sewer budgets, which I think is.
Yeah, it's a useful document for your board,
And
rather than aggregating it.
And then just one other quick note on the warrants. It's a little higher than a normal month. You might have noticed,
We're
but
paying
just to
Half Moon
point out,
Bay.
we're paying our Half Moon Bay reimbursement this time around. The Recology delinquent garbage payment is going out this month as well. And then there was a pass through for a swing pump that we approved for the Naples pump station.
Okay, thank you. Nobody has anything to pull. Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Director Randall, and do we have a second?
Second.
Director Clark? Any further comments? We have a roll call.
Okay, Director Clark,
Aye.
Director Dye,
Aye.
Director Marsh, Director Randall, Director Grant.
Yes.
Okay.
Consent agenda passes 5-0.
Okay, then on to committee reports. Any committee? Seeing none, we will move on to the information calendar, attorney's report,
No report.
general manager's report,
I've got nothing further.
administrative staff report.
Nothing further.
Future agenda items, any comments?
I have a question before I suggest one. Who's responsible for the maintenance of the pump track?
County parks.
County.
Okay, so we did it with them, but we don't have to worry about it.
They're responsible.
Yeah, we just contributed money, but
It's sort of like a hot mess over there.
On the
oh, we can let them know.
Yeah.
Certainly.
I mean, there's like cones that looks like they're like marking maybe areas on the pump track that are maybe not safe or something like that. And the weeds are overgrowing. It just doesn't,
Yeah.
it doesn't look like it's been maintained much.
They were pulling together volunteers to help maintain it. So send something to Nicholas Calderon.
Okay.
Yeah, somebody told me that there was a volunteer group being organized to work there. But, you have to work with the county, and so that arrangement has to be made, and then
Okay.
scheduled and then.
I guess I can go out there with a bucket.
What's funny is the first iteration, they did not work
I'll
with
put
the
you in
county.
touch with Mark.
Remember that? They built it by themselves.
Okay, that'd be great. Thank you.
Well, we first built the first one in a different place.
Okay, any other comments on future agenda items? Seeing none. No, go ahead.
I just want to mention that I think that we should add on, looking towards the future, what kind of security we're going to have for the park. And I also want to keep bringing up that I want our legal counsel to look into adding services such as a hybrid childcare and now policing. So that would be 2 services to add to our agreement with LAFCO.
Okay, additional
So
district
we can't,
services.
we can't add policing because someone does it already. So we'd have to look at the other one.
Yeah, we can't
Can't
overlap other
duplicate
districts.
a existing service. That's one of their big questions.
Is that true, Bill? We can't add policing as a service on our property?
Well, I'll say one thing is the board would need to vote on this first of all before, majority of the board would have to vote to direct me to do so. But Chuck is absolutely 100% correct that one of the main, there's 2 big factors in whether or not your services can expand. And one of them is, are these services already exist? Does someone else already cover them? Secondly, whether or not you would have the financial ability to actually perform the service is the other piece of it, another big piece of it. So, but redundancy in services is one of the big questions, in large part because I think people may be aware of municipal service reviews that are done by LAFCO all the time, and they're always talking about consolidation. These municipal service reviews come out and they say, these are redundant services, we need to get rid of. So LAFCO is loath to actually approve more services that are redundant. And one of the big challenges when we actually expanded the parks was showing that we would provide something different. And I think Chuck was really involved in that LAFCO process. And Chuck, you may want to say, I don't know if you want to say any more about that, but that was one of the main points.
Yeah, those are 2 of the bigger ones, right?
Yeah.
Is you're providing redundant services, and do you have the financing? Because I was the one to process the LAFCO application. I've also done it down south with 4 or 5 other services. So I'm pretty familiar with the process.
Yeah, and
Sorry.
and I don't know if the CSD does police services or not. I'd have to look back at the statute, but I don't recall. But that's
Grant, what did you mean by policing? Sorry, do you literally mean like police, like we would have police officers as part of GSD
On our property.
or just
Well,
having?
It is alluded to in the MND that we would have some sort of security and enforcement. So that sounds like policing to me. And redundancy, that's very interesting. How did we get around that with Parks and Rec? Because San Mateo County does Parks and Rec. And isn't that redundancy?
Yeah, and we're going a little far afield on the future agenda items, but it's not redundancy because we were providing local parks, not county-wide parks.
So if we provide local policing and not county-wide policing, we could do it.
The San Mateo Sheriff already provides, I'm not, Jill, anything could happen, but in my experience going through this stuff, I actually got policing and security services down south. And we actually went with security services, which is a different section of the CSD law than policing. And one of the reasons we went with that is because we could do that. But providing security for a park is a different animal than providing security services for a town.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about, not the town, but for the park.
Yeah, we don't need to expand our powers if we want to secure our park.
So we would rely on the existing services of the sheriff and the fire department and such.
We could hire, I think you're
We
saying
could hire
hire security
security
for our
service.
parks.
If you hired a security because you're having problems at your park, that doesn't need security services power unless Bill tells me I'm wrong, but I've never heard that.
But we would have no enforcement. I mean, If we hired a security guard to walk around, they'd have no enforcement.
Well, it's the same thing in my Rancho Santa Fe district. They hire security, and if really bad stuff happens, they call the sheriff or the police.
Okay.
And having that kind of police power as a whole, I mean, that is a huge step. I mean,
Well, and you get into the funding issue, and a small security services force costs $600,000 or $700,000 a year. So, because we run, our Palma district has security services as well.
It's expensive.
Yeah.
but security services is different than policing though, which is a whole.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's why I was just asking for clarity on what was.
And there are different sections of the 32 powers we can have as a CSD.
Okay, well, we caught a discussion on district
Yeah.
powers, so
Okay.
you can go. Well, we caught that. Anything else?
Should we agendize, trying to get together with RCD and Caltrans about the invasive snails?
Well, Joe Issel is working on that that's kind of the main thrust really of the plan they're doing. Yeah. So when he does, he's
Getting Caltrans
well,
to cooperate.
that'll be part two.
Be active in it. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. But that's kind of the main thrust we talked about. Because it's happening as we speak.
How about the county?
We can include everybody. Yeah.
I believe they're on county property too.
Yeah. I think they're everywhere. I think the only person who eradicated them was us. At one
Right.
time, right.
Yeah. And then they just crossed the line.
Yeah. It's weird the snails don't know the boundaries.
No, I think that we were the ones who spread it with our mowing, to tell you the truth.
Okay, well, no other agenda items. We'll get back to our agenda. And so seeing none, we will call the meeting adjourned at 8:02.
All right.
Good night.
You're okay.
Thanks, good night, Bill.
You only ran 58 minutes long.
You know what?